Welcome to the Church of Perpetual Life. It is my pleasure to be your officiator this evening. My name is Neal VanDeRee, and if you have any questions or need any answers, we'll see what we can do about the answers. I've got all the questions. We have a wonderful lineup this evening, some fantastic speakers on some subjects that some people just don't believe are possible. And here at Perpetual Life, we are continually going forward into the impossible in order to live as long and healthy as possible also. How many are here for the very, very first time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, and since half the crowd is here, I'm going to assume that's probably around 16 or 20 people. And Dr. Paul, thanks for being back. One of our previous speakers here. Glad to see you, and we'll look forward to speaking with you later on. All right. So this is Bring a Friend March. Has anyone brought a friend with them today? Yay! Give yourselves a round of applause. I'm so glad, so glad. Because how else can someone find out about this event if not for that? Although there was a gentleman here earlier today that just only 2 days ago watched the Vice video. If you haven't seen it, I think it's pretty good, but watch the Vice video. It came over here and said, I've been living here now for years and didn't know what you guys were doing over there, what this was all about. But my son gave me supplements from a certain vitamin company, and so he came rushing right on over here. He was unfortunately unable to stay tonight, but we'll be back next month as well. I want to also welcome everyone who's live streaming here today, and there are live stream parties all over the world today, gathering and watching what we're doing here and what we have to say tonight. And I would encourage anyone that is far away to join in on the live stream. And if you cannot participate with the live stream, then you can watch the recordings and have a watch the recordings party. All right, this is a great time to silence your cell phones. Because we want to hear everything Anand has to say. And he's going to be coming up here in just a moment. As a matter of fact, you know what? I think we better get this show on the road. They didn't come here to see me or hear me. I know who they're here to see and hear. And we've got 3 people to come. So I'd like to let you know a little bit about a holistic pharmacist and biochemist. Anand Patel has been involved in developing a longevity program that can add decades to a person's life. He developed a cutting-edge protocol to maximize quality and longevity of life through 40-plus years of research and learning. He has also personally done several regenerations himself, especially his teeth. He has regenerated his own teeth. Wow is right. He was formerly a hospital pharmacist and biochemist for many years. He officially stated his longevity goal of 125 plus years in the early 90s. Anand genuinely cares about his fellow earthlings and their well-being and has developed a very unique ability to connect the dots in the complex environment in which we live. Anand also enjoys his other passions in life. Playing tennis. He played competitively at Wimbledon. Builds and flies vintage World War II airplanes, aerospace aviation projects, Indian classical music, and a passion that I share with Anand, history. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm Hollywood welcome to Dr. Anand Patel. Welcome, sir. I think you're on already. You don't have to worry about a thing. He said press the power button. By the way, next month we're going to be having elections for the Board of Trustees for the Church of Perpetual Life, and I would like to welcome anyone that's interested in serving to please see me this evening.
Okay, am I on? I guess I'm on. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good. So after an introduction like that, I'll try to live up to at least part of it. And So this is, my topic is Regenerations and Longevity. And as you see the slide on there, so we'll get started because they give me a limited amount of time. Okay, so there's a standard disclaimer. Educational purposes, information, and not advice being given, so that's a standard disclaimer. Okay, so moving on. This is what I'm going to try to get into today. Introduction, a little bit of background, my own philosophy on how I look at longevity and all the other aspects of it. An update on a couple of my regenerations that I've done, and some ideas on health. Those are four of the broad topics. And I've got a lot of details that I'm about to present in all the slides with a lot of research backing it up. So we'll move on to the next slide here. Okay, so just a quick introduction of who I am. Hospital clinical pharmacist for 10 years. I practiced hospital pharmacy back in the day, a long time ago. Switched to holistic and alternative about 30 years ago. And it's given me a lot of time to observe and study a lot of conditions in the body of aging and what happens for 40 years. And I've had time to think about and made some pretty astounding discoveries on putting some of that stuff together. And I've come to some soft conclusions, and you notice the word soft is in red, because it's always evolving. There's no such thing as a final conclusion or anything. It's always in a state of flux of improvement, and that's how you get ahead and do better. So it's evolving all the time. In that time, I've developed a pretty unique ability, I think, to how to connect the dots, because there is just so much information out there that it's just overwhelming. So that's the dots part. In the 90s, I stated my goal that, hey, you know what, I wouldn't mind living to 125 plus. And that was kind of a bit of a mistake, because I got into 20 years of ridicule and laughter, but I did make a lot of people laugh. Last 5 years, not so much anymore. They're not laughing as much anymore, because now they say, oh, maybe this guy's onto something. So that's good. Times are changing. This is a slide basically start off with what I consider some of the paramount things in health. If you notice, the word sleep in the middle is in big red letters, is very crucial. Brain health is on top. That's important, obviously. Everybody knows that. And we all know about gut health also, because the microbes, they rule everything. They've got 17 million microbial genes in our body compared to, I think, 3 million of ours. So it's like when you say, I want to eat an ice cream, is it really you want to eat the ice cream, or the bugs that want to eat the ice cream? Decide. So it's not your decision. So that's just one part of it. And so that's gut health is obviously huge, and it's becoming bigger. The one on the bottom, which is what most people miss, is oral health. And this is one area of a lot of research I've done on this one, which is what a lot of people miss that. They say, yeah, sure, brush my teeth and go to sleep, but it's a lot more complex than that, as I'm going to show you. So this is a very important one at the bottom. Can you hear me okay in the back? Okay. All right, so this is my approach and understanding in basically one or two quick slides. There's no one magic holy grail answer to longevity. I wish it was that simple, but I have not found it, and I doubt there is one even. The body is always in a homeostasis or an equilibrium based on all the positives and negatives that you're doing. Everybody know what I mean by homeostasis? It's like balanced between all the good and bad you're doing, and you come out with one answer. If you get a big benefit from one super fantastic thing that you're doing, a procedure that you decide to do, an intervention if you want to call it that, it'll be often, most of the time I find it'll be a temporary blip. And the reason for that is because if you've not changed the previous conditions in the body, whoops, sorry. Oh, this, one more, I think. Yeah. If you've not changed the previous conditions in the body, then why would the body not have a reversion back to the mean? You've made an improvement, but you haven't changed any of the surrounding circumstances of what led you to that decision, and you make a temporary improvement, and you stop that improvement because you can't take IVs all your life, or you can't do something forever, every day for the rest of your life. So then the body's going to fall back to the way it was. So you really didn't achieve much. So that's what I call reversion back to the mean. For long-lasting improvements, you have to make fundamental changes to the body, which the body naturally approves of and will go on its own to do that. That's where you get the massive benefits for long term. So you're not curing or fixing the body of anything. What you're doing is you give it the right tools in the environment, and then you get out of the way. The body will fix itself, and you will achieve and you arrive at a new homeostasis, a new equilibrium, which is going to be better than where you were. And you keep doing that over and over again. So basically, diet, supplements, lifestyle, we know quite a bit about all those. You maximize all those in an extreme way. And there's so much science in all three of those words, a massive amount of data and science. And that's what we do. I get down in the weeds and I read stuff for hours a day. This is what you try to maximize. And you're basically overwhelming the body with so many fundamental changes, positives, it will improve. And you keep doing that. And so you're incrementally adding on to all the progress that you made. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's basically the concept of what we're trying to do here. Okay? All right. So we go quickly into my personal regenerations. What have I done in the last 5, 7, 10 years? I've grown back 2 teeth, well, 3 almost now. One was a complete goner. And that I'll explain a lot more in the next slide on that one. Lowered my gum pockets from 10s to 6s. Some of them are even 3s and 4s now, which is phenomenal because teenagers have gum pockets like 1 or 2 or 3. So some of them are pretty high, and they're still going down, which I'm doing all the time. I think I've got less white hair than I did 5 years ago. I wish I'd taken pictures 5 years ago, but I didn't. So that was not enough foresight on that one. And I'm maintaining what I've got in terms of hair too, because I found ways to stimulate hair follicles and to do a lot of things that they like. And hair follicles, actually, hair cells are not really hair cells or follicles. They are a complete organ. Not many people know that. So hair, the basis of a hair is a complete organ. It's got its own structure, it's got its own way of doing everything. It doesn't care about any of the other cells in the body. So you have to respect that and learn how to help that organ, the hair follicle organ. And it's huge, massive benefits. So that's one thing that I've been doing. And if you're interested in that, you can go into a company called replicell.com, which I've been involved with for a long time. And you can look at all the research where they're growing hair back, and we're in phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials in Germany and Japan with some very big partners. So that's replicell.com. You can read all the science of what we're doing, and tendon repair also in that, which is huge because tendons, very hard to heal tendons, years or never, and that's big business. So we're doing that with that. I'm improving the cartilage in my left knee and hip also, partially reversing cataract in my left eye. So those are some of the smaller things. Okay, so moving on to the number 1, which is what I want to talk a little bit more about, and this is it. So I don't know of anybody else who's done this, but I started about 2014. I developed an infection in my tooth number 8, which is this one in the front here. It's inside your tooth for the people who are not dentists here. And I got rid of the infection through usual antibiotics and stuff like that, but in the process it killed all my nerve and the root. So there was nothing left, and it was just dangling there by the skin. I went to 4 dentists who says, there's nothing we can do, you got to pull it out and put an implant. And I says, no, I don't want an implant. They says, you got to do an implant. So we just went yes and no, back and forth a few times, and I gave up. Finally, I found one dentist who was willing to do what I asked him to do, and he didn't want to do it, and he tried to kick me out of his office, and he says, why do you want to do that? It's not going to work, and then you're going to blame me and want a refund. I says, no refunds. And then I'm looking up at him from, and so, oh, I got my twin here. Okay, there are two of us. So I cloned myself too. There you go. You see? My regeneration works. Okay, so where was I? So I'm sitting in the dentist chair, and he's about to kick me out because we've been battling for 10 minutes. Yes, no, yes, no. And then he gets, and you know how vulnerable you are sitting back in the chair, and you're looking up, and he's looking down at you. You feel really helpless. And he says, and then he gets mad at me. He says, "Why do you want to do this?" And he says, "It's not going to work, and it's going to fail." I says, "Well, I think I can do it." And he says, "Why do you want to do it?" And I looked at him, and I was completely out of all medical, scientific arguments now, because I tried all that, and it all failed. And so I looked at him after a few seconds, and I says, "Because if I lose tooth number 8, then all the other teeth are going to be very unhappy." Because they've lived together for 60 years, and they're going to be unhappy. And he's just shaking his head. And I could see his wheels are turning. He says, "Kick this guy out or do it." One of the two. And finally he says, "Okay, I'll do it. But you're going to sign my disclaimer, and you're going to, because there's no refunds, and you're not going to sue me, because I says, "Write up whatever you want." And he wrote his disclaimers up and protection. I signed it and gave it back to him. Anyway, so he did the surgery, what I wanted him to do. It's called full flap reflective surgery. You go in really deep, you clean everything out. And then I told him to put a special protein matrix that I'd found in there and close everything back up again. And of course, it's pretty major surgery. But, you know, I wanted to give it a shot. I said, "I think I can do it." Now, the secret is in the post-op. The surgery, pretty much any good dental surgeon should be able to do that. But the secret is in the post-op. Like, how do you care for it? Because it's a protein matrix gel, which is not going to give you any strength. The tooth won't move. I mean, my tooth was about to be pulled out of my fingers. So I developed the protocol how to make everything grow back, the nerves and the root. Okay? And that's a very complicated science of what's involved in that, a lot. So I had prepared some of it before, and I added more to it as we went by. And then, if you look on the top here, okay, this is my tooth from 2014, the old one, before the surgery. If you look at this area here, for the people that are not dentists or radiologists here, see this? There's a big black spot there, and this is pretty sketchy in here. That means hollow cavities. There's nothing there. And there's nothing holding that tooth in place. So all this is empty. If you look at the same x-ray from 3 years later, in 2017, 3 years later, look at this whole area there. That's all. A lot of that stuff is grown back. You can see right there. You see what I'm pointing at, right? Right there, that dark, that gray spot. That's structure there. And so that's the result. And of course, if you're going to try to grow back nerves and root, it's a very slow process. You know, you talk in 3 to 6 monthly time periods, not even by the days. So it's a slow process, but the rewards are big. You know, you save your teeth, you don't do implants, you avoid a lot of problems later on. So that's the end result of that on tooth number 8. And I'm at the stage now where I can bite apples on it with my same tooth that was ready to just come out with my fingers. So that's a pretty big deal. And the dentists that I talk to, I have a new dental surgeons, they can't believe it. They're shaking their head every time I go in there, that the improvement every 6 months, 3 months. And so that's what they're showing. Okay, so since that time in 2017, I've moved on to 2 others, which were nowhere near as bad. They were just slightly loose. And as you get older, this happens. Your tooth pockets get bigger, and you start getting infections, and that's happened to me. And so then I've done the same thing now. And you notice again here, you see this? It's all filled in, okay, on a different tooth. That's number 8 update, actually, as of February of this year, so just like 2 months ago. So that's even better than that previous one that you showed me, because this is a very recent, that's only like 2 months old now. So it's improved even from that one from a year ago. So notice how the space is filled in, protein, yes, one happy camper. Okay, and so subsequent to that now, I've gone on and I've saved 2 other teeth now. This one, number 3, in 2017, I had the operation done on that one, and then number 19, just about a year ago. And on the new one that I did, on these 2, I found even a better matrix, a better protein matrix than the first one. These two is the newer one, which I think works even better. It's a newer compound which I got from Israel. Those guys are pretty smart. They do a lot of very advanced research over there. So I found one that's developed over there. And so that's what I've been using on the next two. So I've shown it works. And it's better even than before. Okay, so that's that. So we'll move on from the teeth now. And this is one of the, now I'll go into my third, on the overview, the third step. One of the things that's really, really beneficial is NIR, which is near infrared light. Amazing stuff. This is some real powerful science here. This is pure magic for the body. It's free energy for your cells. It promotes mitochondrial regrowth. It completely bypasses the need for ATP production using the burning of conventional foods, so-called quote. And it's done by using 630 to 660 nanometers wavelength, okay, through these LEDs, which generates the free ATP that the body needs. Does everybody, well, do you know what ATP, how important it is? It's basically the body's energy currency. It's the power that the body uses, ATP, and it goes back and from ATP to ADP all the time. And so that's what ATP is. So if there's a way that you could just make ATP without burning any food, I mean, that would be incredible for the body, because there's no pollution, there's no oxidative stress that's involved, and it frees up the whole cell to do only repair and regeneration now, because it doesn't have to need to make any energy. Amazing science behind it. And so you can do it with NIR. Lasers are good, and a lot of dentists are using those also now, and other people. So massive benefits, and it's done basically using the cytochrome C oxidase, which is a light-absorbing molecule, part of the cell in the mitochondria. And you have trillions of solar panels in the body for free energy. Very good, clean energy, no combustion, nothing needed. And it produces a dramatic decrease in your levels of inflammatory cytokines, you know, the TNF, tumor necrosis factor, the interleukin-6, and it has a massive increase in the IFN, which is the interferon gamma, which is fantastic for your white blood cells, boosting immunity, and all these benefits in the body. Bacteria and viruses, protection against all that. So that's what, all this happens from NIR. And the benefits of this, if you don't want to get into the LEDs and stuff, you can get it from sunlight. It's there all the time. So just go in there, get some sun exposure on a daily basis. And here's the thing that most people are not aware of. NIR, people think that the sunlight is just good for your skin and it makes vitamin D. Okay, yeah, sure it does. But that's only a small part of the benefits. The bigger part of the benefits, as people don't realize, is that the NIR actually penetrates through up to 3 inches past your skin. So when you think about that now, let's think about that for a second. This is really an important point. If you go 3 inches under the skin and all your cells in the body have cytochrome C, that oxidase I was talking about, and the ability to generate free energy from ATP, then basically everything in your body is getting blasted with those radiations, 630 and 660. Your heart rejuvenates just from the sun because it penetrates in. Your liver and kidneys have great benefits because it goes right through your skin into the liver. Your liver says, wow, fantastic, I got sunlight of the right frequency. It's just all in the intricate design, which people don't realize. It's just the way the body is built. It's an amazing machine. So you're basically rejuvenating all your organs for 15 minutes of sunbathing. I mean, how much cooler than that does it get? What more benefits do you guys want? It's right there. Okay, so that's what gets me so excited. And hardly anybody knows that. That is, penetrates 3 inches inside your skin. Nobody knows that. How many people here knew that before? Okay, we got 1, 2 people. Good guys. Maybe buy you a beer later. Okay, next one is chlorophyll. Okay, so how do you make that free energy? Chlorophyll. Now everybody knows chlorophyll is in plant cells, and we'll go through this real quick. So as explained in the 2013 Journal of Science, sunlight is the most abundant energy source on the planet. Its ability to convert sunlight into energy, into biological energy in the form of ATP, which we talked about, is thought to be limited to chlorophyll containing chloroplast in photosynthetic organisms only, i.e. plants. Here we show that mammalian mitochondria can also capture light and synthesize ATP. That's us, not plants. So we can do the same thing that plants are doing. I mean, how amazing is that? You know, so, and they've shown this when mixed with a light-capturing molecule, metabolite of chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll we get when we eat plants. Your veggies and lettuce and all that has got chlorophyll in it. But if you want to up it, what I do is I get concentrated amounts of it by using something called chlorophyllin in the capsule, 100, 200 milligrams a day. So this is concentrated. And it not only has DNA repair, but you are upping your chlorophyll in all your cells with these pills when I take those every day. And it increases the production of free ATP and that whole process. The same metabolite fed to the worm C. elegans leads to an increase in ATP production and light exposure, along with an increase in lifespan. Anybody here interested in increasing lifespan? Oh, just a few, okay. The rest of you don't want it so much. Okay, I get it. Lifespan, that's what we're all here for. That's the magic words. Okay, well, eat some chlorophyllin and eat some plants and you can concentrate your chlorophyllin. You get, it's right there. 2014 study. Wheatgrass, all the green stuff. Because the green stuff is what has the chlorophyll. So, and they've already demonstrated the conversion of light into it. And if you're doing that, you basically free the cell up to do what you want. It's like equivalent I would give you is, you don't have to go to work, you just have all kinds of money and wealth, so you can spend all day learning how to do paintings and learning classical music, and you got all the time in the world to do all the stuff that you want to do. That's how the cell looks at it. It doesn't have to do any work. So now you're just, you're freewheeling, you're doing creative stuff, and that's what the cell does. And creative stuff for the cell is rejuvenation, DNA repair, and how to improve and grow more mitochondria. You know, I mean, anybody think growing more mitochondria would help you live longer? Yeah. Okay, so that's why that's so important. Okay, and ATP by catalyzing the reduction of CoQ10. And reduction means like the oxidation reduction, you're not reducing the amount of it's, well, you know what I mean, some of you. So that's a slow step because that's a rate limiting step in the mitochondrial production. So great stuff, amazing. And the science is right there. It's already been shown in research papers on that. Okay, the secret, two very important Holy Grail type concepts we can talk about. One is prevention is the key. Identify potential problems as early as you can. Be aggressive in the solution. Be preemptive. The faster you jump on a problem or situation, the better off you are. That's prevention is key. So if there was such a thing as a holy grail to longevity and great health, I would say it's got to be prevention. And you know, and one of our founding fathers probably said the same thing too. You know, so, and the second is consistency, which I'm going to share with you in just a minute what I mean by that. Okay, so prevention is the key. 1 ounce of prevention, they say, is worth a pound of cure. I don't agree with that. It's worth 5 pounds of cure in our day. That 1 pound of cure, that was 200 years ago. So that's way back then. But then they didn't do a lot of the screwy stuff that we do nowadays. You know, all the bad stuff and all the rules we break nowadays, they didn't do a lot of those back then. They went to bed at 7 o'clock. You know, so stuff like that. So that's why it's even more important now than it was back then. So that's why I say it's 5 pounds of cure, not 1 pound. You can reduce your 10-year prognosis of so many conditions from 40% down to 1% by just following all these different rules. That's prevention. You know, if you can change something from 40% to 1%, hey, that's great. I'll take 1% all day long. So your goal is really prevention, preserve, and regrow. In that order. You work at holding your own right now, preserve what you got. Then if you need to, you can go into regrow, but then you're going to have to do repair. So And you have to do that sometimes too. So that's how that goes. Okay, this is a very, very important slide, in my opinion, if you want overview of a lot of this complicated stuff. In health, nothing is more powerful than consistency. Whatever you do most often will determine your outcome. Whatever it is. And, you know, if you do a lot of good stuff once a year, well, you know, that's what you get once a year, benefit from it. If you do really good stuff every day of the year, that's what I mean by consistency. Once you latch onto something and I certify it as, okay, this is what I want to do for myself, I think it's really important, I've seen the science and I figured it all out, I'm going to do this. It's on my bucket list. I do it day in, day out. I don't deviate. Unless if I have new information that I want to modify it, or if I want to drop something at the bottom of the list and add something to the top, then I can do that too, because I'm evolving. But once it's on my list, it's on my protocol. It gets done every single day. That's what I mean by consistency. And that's huge, huge. Doing something while you've heard something great and you do it for a few days and then you fall off the bandwagon, well, you won't achieve too much that way. So get consistency, whatever you do most often. That's where you're going to end up being. Okay, what to do? Don't go it alone. Identify the right people, get expert help. I mean, do you work on your own car if you got a complicated computerized car and you try to fix it yourself? Not many people do that. But the body is infinitely more complex than that. So, you know, get help. There's plenty of good knowledge out there. Our overall knowledge of everything, of what we know actually, is only partial. I don't think we even know 20% of what there is to know. And that might be optimistic even. So there's a lot of knowledge out there. Even for the experts, it's a really tough challenge. Every day to put it all together. It's tough, day in, day out, to figure all this stuff out. There are 10,000 things you can take or do for your health, but nobody can do 10,000 things a day. That's not feasible. So you narrow it down. I do maybe 200 or 300 things a day, and I'm pretty much maxed out between lifestyle, supplements, and different things I do. But I do my 200, 300, 400 things a day. Probably it's in that neighborhood, but 300, 400 maybe. But I do it every day. It's on autopilot for me. I don't think about it. It just do it. Okay? So which ones you do is critical. And so for you to maximize what you need is the best things you can do, because you can't do 10,000, so you got to pick the best of what you need to do. Okay, there are certain master molecules, what I call, that's my term, master molecules in the body, which I think I focus on a lot more, because by master molecules I call things that you change one thing, but you have so much downstream benefits from it, because it affects everything in the body. Glutathione is right there in the top, and that's raised with whey protein and N-acetylcysteine, which they use routinely. So that's the two ways you can do that. And because glutathione is a tripeptide, there's two things in there. It's made up of glutamic acid, glycine, and cysteine. The first two amino acids, there's plenty in the body. There's no shortage of it. The rate-limiting step is L-cysteine, which is always critically short. So certain whey proteins, when they're undenatured, they come in the body, and the body neatly cleaves them out, and you get two cysteines from one cysteine, and the production of glutathione goes shooting up intracellularly. And that's crucial, because that's the only way to raise it. You can't eat it, you can't use it topically, none of that stuff works, in my opinion. I haven't seen anything that works. You have to give the raw materials to the cell, let the cell make its own, and the production of glutathione goes shooting up, and you get massive benefits from that. It's just off the charts, and there's hundreds of thousands of studies done on that. If you look at PubMed, and if you go on some of the journals or universities, it's very highly researched science. Nitric oxide, we'll show you a little bit more on the next slide. It's got two pathways. I'll talk about the next one. Another one you might want to look at is something called Restore. It's a liquid which you can buy. Just go on the internet and find it. And basically what you are doing is there's something called tight junctions, which are weaves in your intestine, which as you get older with a lot of the toxicity, they tend to loosen up. And when they do that, you get leakage of a lot of undesirable things that leak past your gut, like what you've all heard of leaky gut syndrome. Okay? So that's one of the problems there. So what Restore does is it tightens up those tight junctions and prevents a lot of toxicity from going into your body. So that's what the research is. And, glyphosate injury, a lot of other things that it can help on. Manganese also helps with that too. C60 fullerenes, you've heard of Buckminster fullerene with the buckyball, if you remember years ago. A C60 carbon structure in a very tight sphere. This acts as an amazing electron transfer and oxidative stress repair. Amazing science behind that. Most of it is very poorly researched, not much out there that I can find. So I'm still playing around with that myself. And I've seen some really good benefits of that. So that's one thing. NADH, you've heard quite a bit about that. Amazing stuff, pills, patches, and IV is the other way. So that's amazing science behind that. SAMe is another master molecule in the body. It's a triple methyl donor. Lots of benefits to SAMe, and these things are all closely related. There's SAMe, tryptophan, melatonin, folic acid, a couple of other core factors. If you look at the Krebs cycle, the citric acid Krebs cycle, it's right there. They all look the same. So if you give some of it, the body will convert and change over to what it wants. Amazing stuff. So these are master molecules. You take some of this stuff and you get benefits through the whole body. So it's pretty amazing. TMG is another really good one too, which I take. It's got 3 methyl groups to donate, and 1 glycine is left over. Glycine is amazing, which I'm going to show you in the next slide over what glycine is. Beets is amazing, and sodium nitrite is amazing also. Beets has got a lot of nitrate in it, which is good for relaxing capillaries and stuff, and a lot of other stuff. The nitrates and nitric oxide, the NO, Dr. Luis Ignario won a Nobel Prize for this, and Nobel Prize in Medicine about 10 years ago for his research on nitric oxide. Crucial signaling molecule, whole raft of benefits to that. It's just a master critical molecule in the body. And there's many others for sleep, oral health, and brain that I use also, but I can't go through all those right now. This is the nitric oxide, 2 pathways. One is the arginine pathway, and the other one is nitrates and nitrites. Those you get from beets. The body has both built in. Most people have only one that's functional properly, and the other one is dominant and the other one is much more recessive. Well, if your source of the dominant one fails, then you're going to have a lot of problems in the body from not having enough nitric oxide, because it's huge. It's a signaling molecule. It tells all the body what to do. The endothelium, your organs talking to each other, the heart, liver, kidneys, these guys are all talking to each other. You got to get on the same page. They want to help each other and work as a team. So this is why it's so crucial, nitric oxide. So make sure you talk to somebody that can fix both your pathways for you if one is not functional or down. So that's 2 ways to do it. That tells a lot in that one. Okay, this is contrast water therapy. Simple thing that I do several times a week. And all the science behind it is very well proven. Journal of Medical Hypotheses, PubMed 2008. Okay, that picture that you see over there on the right-hand side, that's my community pool. And it's totally not heated. Okay, so that's yours truly in the pool about a month ago in California, but it's very cold this winter. And one day I went there, and I go in there like 3-4 times a week. I jump in there, it's extremely cold. And in January, I can only last maybe 3 minutes, which I have to train myself to, because it's like getting hit with an 18-wheel truck when you go in there, in my shorts. So it's really intense cold. A lot of benefits: lactic acid lower, stored toxin, depression increases in immune function, monocytes, white blood cells, capillary action, mood, weight loss, noradrenaline, and a 16% boost in metabolic rate. I mean, what else you need? And that's me in the winter freezing my little butt off, right there. But it's better that I do that for 3 minutes and take the benefits than, a lot of other bad things can happen to the body. So I'm okay doing that. When I come out of there, I warm up in a few minutes, And I tell you, I can notice a difference in my body within minutes. And for the whole rest of the day and even the next day, I can noticeably feel a difference. Is it comfortable? Hell no, not at all. But you get used to it. And I look forward to this every day, or at least 4 or 5 times a week. Okay? The water temperature I measured is 48 degrees. Okay?
What is it usually? You said that was exceptionally cold, right? What's the usual temperature?
In the water? The water is usually in the 40s, 48 to 50 degrees, because the water always stays colder.
That's the usual temperature, 48.
Yeah, in the wintertime. In the summer, it's much warmer, but
Will it work with warmer temperatures?
it'll work probably, but not as well. The colder you can do, the better. In the 40s is great, because believe me, when it's 45 to 48 degrees, it's intense. I don't know if you've ever done it or not, but if you ever go in there, you'll find out that 48 degrees, water is an incredible conductor of heat. It's not like air. You can go in freezing temperature outside, and it won't be that a big deal with just swimming trunks on. You go in water at that temperature, there is a 50-degree differential in temperature there. 50 degrees, from 98 to 48, that's 50 degrees. That's huge. You know, that's New York huge. I'm not from New York, but okay, it's huge. And you can feel the benefits of it. Yes, I have. You can ask me that question, and I'll tell you about that also later. But yes, so the cryo, you pay somebody money, and you can ask me that in the future. I'll tell you about that also. But this is a quick, simple, easy way. It costs you nothing. Just jump in the coldest pool you can find, and do that every other day, or I like to do it even more often than that. But it's amazing stuff. Because I'm very observant on my body. Every little detail, I know exactly what's working how. And if there's any changes, better or worse, I know right away. And that's something that I would encourage all of you to do. Pay attention to your body. Your body is talking to you all the time. Most people don't listen. You know, they're too busy eating potato chips and watching TV. They don't listen. You got to listen. And it's telling you what to do. And somebody help you listen to get all the clues. Because if you don't know where you came from, how do you know where you want to go? You got to know where you are now. Otherwise, you don't know where you want to go. So this is why it's crucial, because then you know what's working and what's not. That's what I mean by listening to the body. Make sense? Okay, so that's another thing. 2 simple ideas. This is on my workbench. You can see my computer on the right-hand side. That's a hydrogen water maker that I drink water on once or twice a day. It's little 16 ounces of water, and you can see the blue light is on the bottom, and that murky thing in here, go back the wrong way. Here. See how the water is so cloudy? That's pure hydrogen gas. So that's being infused into the water. And that red light means you can see very minute bubbles. So I leave it there. It takes about 4 or 5 minutes to infuse the water, and I drink it right away. The solubility of hydrogen in water, H2, is about 400 to 800 ppm, parts per million. That's a lot of free radical neutralizers in 16 ounces. If you got 400 parts per million and you're drinking 16 ounces of water, that's a lot of free radical prevention just from drinking water. No pills, nothing, can make your own for free. So this is what I mean by lay down your good habits and get consistent with it. Just do it every day or every other day or whatever you want to do. This is one of my routines. I do it every day, and it's great. Apart from all the other stuff, obviously. Okay, so that's one thing. And you drink it right away while it's fresh, because it loses potency and very quickly. Within 10-15 minutes, it's no good anymore. So right away, you're doing that. The other one bottle here is Lugol's iodine. Iodine, is a great purifier of blood. It has a lot of benefits to it. So you can buy it in pills also. And the stores of iodine are in the thyroid, and it uses that as a detoxing for bacteria and viruses. It's one of your biggest detoxes of all that. Bill, I think you were asking me about blood detoxing. So that's something that's very beneficial for that. Okay. You heard of the song Walk Like an Egyptian? Who's heard of that one? It's a popular song from way back. Well, I say, eat like a Frenchman. Be French, eat cheese. Okay, now that's good advice. I mean, who doesn't like cheese? Question, can cheese increase lifespan? A simple thing like cheese? Well, Nature Medicine from December of 2016 says yes. Spermidine is a natural compound found in cheese. Copious amounts of spermidine is found in various aged cheeses, and it's got all the cheeses listed there, as well as strong variants like blue cheese, so you can see that. It's a naturally occurring molecule. We call it in science, it's called a polyamines. And polyamines regulate many, many critical, crucial cellular processes, including DNA, genetic coding, plays a vital role in something called autophagy. Anybody here interested in autophagy, or you heard that before? I'm sure a few times. Okay? That's real science, autophagy. And I love autophagy. And so you get it from eating cheese, apart from all the other ways to do it. Okay? It's a biological mechanism that spermidine seems to activate it. Responsible for digestion, recycling of toxins, and I do fasting also. I've gone on to something in relation to that. I do 28-hour fasts, which is great for me. The first 24 you get by, but the real magic happens between 24 and 28. 24 is not bad. If you can do that, is good. But the last 4 hours is when I've seen a lot of research which shows the last 4 hours, the rate of autophagy in the body increases by 300% compared to pre-24 hours. I mean, just think about that. Okay, so if you're going to do 24, just kick in a few more hours and go to 28 or 30. So that's what I do. I'll have a very light lunch one day, or medium-sized lunch around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Then I won't eat for that whole day. I'll wake up the next morning, no breakfast. I'll just have 1 cup of tea with nothing in it, just plain tea, which just wakes me up a little bit, no calories. And then for the last 6 to 8 hours of my fast, for the rest of the day, because I won't eat dinner then till about 6 or 7, which will give me my full 28 hours. The last 6 or 8 hours, I even don't drink any water. And I'm trying to stress my body even more. Put it even into more extreme conditions. And then the last 1 or 2 hours before I start eating, I'll even go to the gym, lift a few light weights, do a few laps of the pool, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of treadmill, get a little bit of a workout, like a moderate type workout. So I'm really tired now because I'm swimming laps in the pool with no energy. My body's under severe stress right now. And that's what I want, because in that stress is when you're trying to kill off all those senescent cells. Those cells that are just clogging up your system. And when you do extreme things like that, it's the weak and senile cells that will die off first, which is what I want. And that unclogs the system. So that's why I'm kicking my autophagy into overdrive, just for 4 or 5 more hours. And then I'm happy. I sit down, I eat my nice meal, and in India, I'm originally from India, but in one of the sayings over there with the sages used to have, I remember a long time ago, was a wise man, or a smart man knows how to fast properly. But only a wise man knows how to break the fast properly. Okay, so that's whatever that's worth. So when you break your fast, don't sit there and gorge yourself out. Okay, that's not a good idea. Just eat a moderate meal is what that basically means. Just eat a moderate meal and get back to normal routine the next day. So that's what it is. So autophagy is fantastic. And there's, of course, many other ways you can increase that also from nutrition and other stuff too. Okay, sleep ideas. No food 3 hours before bedtime. I don't eat 3 hours before bedtime. And one of the rules is late food is treated very, very negatively by the body. Your body hates that, and the mitochondria hate it even more than the body. So you don't want to upset your mitochondria. That nothing good comes of that. They are your foundation. It's the powerhouses, what the energy cells are made in the body is from mitochondria. So keep them happy, everything you do. And they do not like late food, because it completely messes up the circadian cycle and everything. Try to eat more food earlier and stop eating at sunset if you can. Now, I realize we live in a complicated world. There's so many things going on. Sometimes you go to a party and you eat at 8, 9, 10. It's okay. Once in a while is okay. Okay? You got to live also, but just don't make it a habit, is what I'm saying. Things in moderation. Magnesium glycinate, great for sleep. One of the best things around, and I'll tell you why. Magnesium is not well absorbed. Glycinate, magnesium, is high absorption. It's broken down into magnesium and glycine. The magnesium content of this is pretty low. It's probably only like around 10 or 15% of it is magnesium, which is pretty low compared to most magnesium compounds. But that's okay, because it's highly absorbed, so you're getting quite a bit. But the benefits of it is that the other 85% is glycine. And glycine is the most abundant amino acid in the body. It's by far the most abundant. And glycine is great for sleep also. Very beneficial. Bears sleep for 3-4 months. Rodents sleep for months at a time. How do these guys sleep for 3 months straight? People complain, I can't even get 3 hours of good sleep and I'm up half the night. Well, these guys sleep for 3 months. And the reason they do it is because we found their glycine stores in the pineal gland and a couple of other glands are very high, astronomically high chart of glycine. So that gave us a clue then. Well, hey, maybe we should try it out. Works great for me. It's just simple amino acid. And magnesium glycinate is a good way because you're getting two beneficial things, the magnesium and the glycine. And then, of course, I take those other things listed down there too, personally, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. And I always try to take them with warm or hot water always. That's much better absorption for most of these things, and it's less likely to irritate stomach and stuff. Warm water is great to drink. It just helps with everything. Okay, so there's that. Keep regular sleep time and wake time. Okay, continue learning. One of the best tools anywhere is RadFest. Okay, so quite a few have been there here probably, and if you haven't, Google it, radfest.com. It's an amazing source of learning, science, meeting a lot of other people there. I go there every year. I was a presenter there before. So it's a big event too. And this year it's usually, in San Diego the last 2 or 3 years. This year it's going to be in Las Vegas. So look it up and try to go there. It'll be an amazing 3 days for you to spend and learn a lot of stuff if you're interested in this topic of longevity and health.
Where in Las Vegas?
I'm not sure of the hotel, but if you Google it, it's all on there.
Westgate.
Just go into radfest.com and Westgate? Okay, so it'll be at one of the hotels there. Okay, and let's see what else we got. Live long and prosper.
All right.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a great presentation. I'm so glad you're here. And I did first meet him at RadFest last September last year, and it certainly is a very important thing to do. If you're serious about living a long and healthy life, you really need to go to RadFest. We only have a couple of minutes for question and answer, so what I know I see 15 hands out there, but we only have a couple of minutes. So we've devised something. Shannon, come forward. We have booklets with pens where you can write your questions down, because I don't want you to forget them. I do want you to get the answers. If we're going to pass these around, go ahead and pass these around. Shannon's going to take care of that, and I'm going to be right with you. You're first on the list, and as I say, we've only got a few minutes, but Anand, can you hang out with us after the event and meet people personally?
Sure.
Great. And of course, we're going to go ahead and pass out the cards so that you'll be able to get answers here in just a moment. But I have a young lady here. You get to go first.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to know, can you do a long cold shower if you don't have a pool?
Yeah, good question. What I do is I go back and forth all the time in the shower between hot and cold as many times as you can. That's great. And also, if I have a cold shower, I'll jump in the jacuzzi and then come back once or twice. Do that, or in the pool back and forth. That's a great thing to do because you're going both ways. And yes, you can do that. You can do that once or twice while showering, and then at the end of the shower, always rinse off with cold water. Your last thing you do And you can go as cold as you can bear. In the beginning, you won't be able to do too much, but eventually you'll go all the way to completely all cold. And just rinse off with all cold for 30, 60 seconds is all you need.
Even your head?
Absolutely, your head too, because your hair follicles are very important. They love it too, if you want to keep your hair.
One more question here with Steve, and then we're going to pass around these booklets that you have. We're going to keep passing them around. After they've done, you can circulate them. There's a lot of paper in there. Steve.
Hi, earlier on you were talking about sodium nitrite being one of the molecules that are essential. Is there a different type of sodium nitrate that's not the one that's added in the foods that creates keeps botulism and other bacteria from growing?
Okay, good question. The sodium nitrite I use just for myself because I'm still learning some of the stuff about it, and it's very tricky stuff to use. So I wouldn't recommend you doing that. I've got a lot of experience with biochemistry and other stuff. Then it's complicated to do that. It works well, but that's what I do. Easiest way for you to do it would be with beets and beet powder and stuff like that. It's safe. It's much easier to do it, and you probably get the same or better benefits as that because they're very high in nitrates and stuff like that. And of course, beets are fantastic, very healthy stuff. That's what. Yep. The whole slide presentation?
Yeah, what we can do is make it PowerPoint available, if that's okay with you. But if you don't, it's okay.
Yeah, I'd rather not do that. And,
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more time for Anand Patel. I know many of you have many more questions. Maybe you want his phone number or you would like to be in touch with him. So that's why we're going to circulate these pads and pens because we want to be within time. So Shannon's going to go ahead and circulate those. Be sure to get your questions to me on the papers, on the pads, and I will be in touch with you. Be sure to leave me your phone numbers and emails. Be sure to give me that so that I can get the information back to you. If I don't have the answer, Anand may. All right? All right. So we have another speaker this evening, one we're very proud to have tonight, a fellow Terasem member. Well, more than a member, aren't you? Boy. He is a techno-progressive political activist, a 2014 congressional candidate, and a writer and speaker in the futurist and transhumanist movement. Gabriel is a pastor, community organizer, and a member of the board of directors with the Terasem movement, and a co-director of World Futurist Net. Subscribers to the Terasem movement believe technology will one day make it possible to make digital copies of oneself. Peter Rothman from Humanity Plus wrote that Rothblatt may be the first openly transhumanist political candidate in the United States. He writes and speaks on transhumanist topics such as seasteading, cryonics, religion, mind uploading, and technological discrimination. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome for our next speaker, Gabriel Rothblatt. Come on up. Okay, let me get you a microphone because I don't think you've got mic'd up.
No, I did not get my.
There we go. Is that good?
You waved it. You've got it.
Oh, Anand, you have the clicker? Thank you.
Excellent. All right. I'm assuming that's a top forward. Excellent. And alrighty, mic check. Everyone hear me? Can you hear me in the back? Doing good? All the way out here? This close? Okay. Not every microphone is made the same. Excellent. Well, this is my first time at the Church of Perpetual Life, so I am very thrilled to be here. I've wanted to make the trip down here a number of times, never really came together, so I'm extraordinarily thrilled just to be here. But I'm especially excited to see all of you here. Each and every single one of you and all of you together, this is a great congregation. Regardless of what we were here to discuss or to congregate over, this is a great turnout. If this was a Baptist church on a Sunday afternoon, this is a great turnout. I went to a Unitarian Universalist church two weekends ago, and roughly same size building, there was maybe a third of the people in attendance. And so over, as we said, Anand said, 5 years ago, they maybe started to stop laughing as much. But certainly, this kind of turnout is extraordinary for any belief, any faith. And so, let's all give ourselves a round of applause, a pat on the back for making it out here, for having the courage and to believe in yourselves and to believe in this and to go out and to make it happen and to go out and manifest that change. Because that's really something that I'm going to touch on a lot here in my ramble. And what I will disclaim right off the bat, I will not talk too much about is the pharmaceutical and the biochemical side, because I'm not Anand, and he did an amazing job presenting all that information. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an engineer. I'm a philosopher by trade and by practice. I am here, and I'm going to learn much from you about the molecules, many of the things that you are doing to preserve your biological substrate. But I'm also going to challenge you to consider other things that you can add to your routine that are going to be critically important to your long-term joyful immortality. All right. Pop quiz. Which insert here best defines Terasem? 1, a trans religion that includes all religions the way a forest includes its trees. 2, a 501c3 charitable organization registered in North Carolina. C, a regularly updated operating system for technological times. That weird cult founded by a bunch of Jews who want to live forever. All of the above. Somebody said it. All right. I wish I had some prizes. I'd throw them out to you, but I didn't bring it. Excellent. There's a story that I learned growing up in a Jewish household about Rabbi Hillel, who was challenged by a Babylonian leader to really sum up the teachings of the Torah. And what he did, the story, tells us is, and he had to do it all while standing on one leg. So what he did was, he stood on one leg and he said the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I'm going to sit up here, try to stand on one leg. Hopefully I don't fall. I was practicing this earlier. Life is purposeful. Death is optional. God is technological. And love is essential. And all the rest is commentary. Go forth and study. Someone else has heard that one. So the next thing that I want to do to really break down and talk about what Terasem is to maybe take a step back and to look at particularly that section, that one point I said about being a religious organization. What does that really mean? What does that really come from? I imagine that most people in this room are familiar with the book *Sapiens* by Yuval Harari. Maybe a show of hands who's, good number of you have read that. So what he really presents in that book is this notion that the uniqueness of the sapiens is this intersubjective ability. It's this ability to create things between our conscious minds that don't yet or do not exist in the physical world. And this ability to coordinate and to create these fictitious organizations allowed us to outcompete the other versions of Homo, leaving Homo sapiens the only ones left. But what happened when we had no other group to compete with is that we began to compete with ourselves. And this is something that Anand touched on, and something that is really a core point to this presentation, is that it's ourselves which are our greatest threats. It's our own lifestyle, it's our own choices which are killing us. So, you know, he, as he said, he brings up this point about religious organizations and how, or I would say fictitious organizations, religious organizations as a variety of that, certainly, Terasem being one of them. But in my study, in my practice of religion, and how I've overlain that with an understanding of consciousness and of neurochemistry, that we developed codes, both religious, national, and even corporate, in order to perceive towards a certain goal, one to regulate behavior, and that these organizations, when they stopped serving the purpose of outcompeting our brethren, began to serve the purpose of industry and colonialization, of getting you to pursue a lifestyle that benefited the organization and not yourself, which was what we can posit as a critical difference between the variations of early man, who were much more concerned about the maintenance of the homeostasis between themselves and their environment, and then how the fictitious organization allowed us to begin routines and habits that did not maintain the homeostasis. So that was one thing that I found very enlightening in my studies and growth in following Terasem. Another one is Octavia Butler's book called Earthseed, and this was very directly an inspiration for Terasem, because the word Terasem means earthseed. So it was an envisioned religion throughout these parable books, where earthseed became a hope, a shining light in the midst of massive hysteria and chaos. That this vision that the destiny of life was to go to new stars and to expand throughout the cosmos. Very much like the notion of just trying to maybe do something slightly outside the norm, like not dying, you know, was something that nobody was really able to look at very early on. It also, in that book, which is very timely, it foretold this rise of Christian nationalism, specifically under the chant of "Make America Great Again." And remember, these books were written in the late 80s, early 90s. So well beyond, very prophetic telling of our times. And what it also told in that book is that this hysteria, the social hysteria that came about in 2015 through the period of 2035 in these novels, this thing called the Pax, was in part brought about by the inability of us to process the amount of information that we were receiving. And that is something that we will touch throughout the rest of this presentation into discussion, as we talk about the importance of your information in longevity, your digital information, your experiences, the essence of who you are, as much as the biological maintenance of the substrate which is carrying your consciousness. So I'm going to go through the next slides here, and I am going to recite the what of Terasem, which is the second section of Terasem. There are 6 sections. They follow the answers: who, what, why, when, where, how. I'm going to go through. I'll do a recitation of the the what of Terasem. Some of these I've bolded. They are numbered. I would encourage you, if there's anything here that sticks out to you, just try to remember the bullet point, and I can come back to it, and we can revisit. Because what I'd really like to happen here is to spare some time for the question and answer, so I am less of lecturing you about my own personal experiences and more facilitating a discussion about the why, the how, and the where. Forest of Terasem means good lives are immortal, and good faiths are welcome in cyber heaven. Fundamental to every religion is the immortality of the soul, which in Terasem is our consciousness. Afterlives differ for good and evil, thus Terasem knows a joyful immortality means only good lives. Identity migration amongst physical substrates honors creation by continually bearing witness to its greatness. Transferring identity to cyber substrate is a matter of mannerisms, personality, recollections, feelings, beliefs, attitudes, and values. Having multiple transferred identities for a single soul is just as joyous as having many children. Souls will be reanimated via mindware and mind files because it is doable, respectful, and completes Terasem. 2.2, omniscience, omnipotence, and omniscience, that should have been omnificence, sorry, are what uniquely define God. Daily experience tells us nothing meets these criteria today or historically. Earth's innocently suffering millions is proof that there is nothing omniscient, omnipotent, or omnificent today. Future technology will enable Terasem to encompass the universe, thus becoming omniscient, omnipotent, and omnificent. In this way, we are building Terasem into God with smart atoms and conscious electrons. Nanotechnology and geoethics are the tools for expanding Terasem into universe-wide omniscience, omnipotent, and omnificence. Expansion of Terasem is the purpose of life because this makes life good for all. Ritual observances, the way of Terasem, must be respected daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, and quadrennially. What did Nan say about consistency? Consistency, there it is. Religiously perform daily exercise, vitology, unite earth, work happily, author self, serenity, utope self, motivate, astro, sleep. Insist upon a sundown to sundown Sabbath, rest weekly, sing love night, read, exercise, sexercise, and transcendental meditation. I should have bolded that one. 10th of each month at 10 o'clock, gather for reading 30 sequential truths of Terasem. You guys are lucking out. We're going to go through all 60. Sorry, lost my place. All right. Understand better freedom, nature, obligation, and transcendence with ceremonies after each calendar quarter's third gathering, respectively. Acknowledge the 10th of the 10th by reciting truths of Terasem entirely and celebrating collective advancements. Leap forward the 60th day of every year with a decisions-making convocation concluding on the 1 year day of the year, which is a pronouncement, March 4th. Go forth and achieve. Exclusively a trans religion is Terasem. Don't leave your religion, for there is no battle. Battle disbelief and battle discord, but do not battle the forest that protects us all. Adopt Terasem as your trans religion, and you will experience the pull of joyful immortality. Treat all great religions with respect, for they teach monotheism, individualism, solidarity. goodness, afterlife, and Sabbath. Treat all great prophets with respect, for they were touched by the future Terasem. Links from the future Terasem to the past and present help to accelerate our progress. Expect not all religious leaders to understand Terasem, for even bright lights leave some shadows. In fact, you cannot have one without the other. Sacred is consciousness above all else, says Terasem. Sacred consciousness is respected by Terasem's commitment to diversity, unity, and joyful immortality. And Thenaphy, the philosophy that science will conquer death, is a basic Terasem belief. Commitment to diversity ensures the precious individuality of consciousness. Regulated unity gives us the strength to protect consciousness against the many forces of chaos. Psychic joy arises from the sacredness of consciousness, which forges an ethical society devoted to self-actualization. Distributed intelligence via individualization and universal self-replicating systems honors the sacredness of consciousness with immortality. Theologically, the multiverse includes joyful immortality via data emulation of a diverse and united universe. Unending life, the belief that once life arises, it will last forever, is Terasem immortality theology. Never-ending creation, recycling, and growth is the Terasem creation theology. I think, therefore I am, is at the core of Terasem reality theology. Teleological belief in diversity, unity, and joyful immortality forms Terasem meaning of life theology. Euthenics, improving the well-being of extant life, is Terasem behavioral theology. Deontologically weighted decision-making is the basis of Terasem moral theology. Trans-religion is us because we ritualize our belief in a supernatural, metaphysical, collective consciousness future God. Beginnings differ amongst religions, but we bridge them all by focusing on everlasting life. Everlasting life realized via digital emulation in a joyous cyber heaven bridges all Western and Eastern religions. Life is what can be conceived, believed, and achieved. Insistence on the rituals of Terasem exponentiates the rate of advancement towards joyful immortality. Every religion shares our belief in becoming part and parcel of God, which we call Terasem. Faith that we have a purpose in emulating and controlling the universe also makes Terasem a trans-religion. Resurrection is promised to all good lives, which shall be copied as forever joyful data emulations. Copied lives are protected lives. Original lives can be replicated with the same fidelity as analog sounds, can be digitally duplicated. Paradise for posterity is assured by modifying data emulations to delete torturous aspects of life. Introspection plus computation, growing double exponentially and supported with self-replicating yields, ethical emulation, and faithful resurrection. Emulated lives are existential lives. Duplication of a life makes it durable, not diminished. Eschatology doesn't apply because souls emerge from life's experiences and they transcend death via resurrection. Emerged best describes the growth of our soul because even in substrate, it has imminent potential. Manifesting potential with unique actuality requires experiences, and these experiences exist forever thereafter. Emulation enables experiences to reemerge, and with them comes their soul. Resurrection is to souls what remembering is to memories. Geoethics prescribes the resurrection of nightmares. Exponentially expanding consciousness will not require resurrection, as death is a historical but not future reality. End of time doesn't exist for Terasem because the multiverse weaves new time, and time is relative. What has no beginning also has no end, existing always. The multiverse is the host of all reality, for ultimate beginnings are logical contradictions. Accumulated intelligence of double exponential growth coupled with universal nanotechnology enables Terasem to redefine physics. Virtual time sharing enables Terasem to escape from an end to objective time. Escapes from this universe are as numerous as the galaxies and as limited as our intelligence. Subjective time-space, energy, is made infinite by repeatedly existing on only half of a finite remainder. And with that completion of the reading of the What of Terasem, we are ready to go out and make eternity great again. But not without the necessary process of not taking what you are told, taking what you presented at face value. A critical part of consciousness is skepticism, and a very important part of Terasem, as inspired by the vision of Earthseed, is to share these scriptures with the group and to have you challenge them. And that's why as we progress here, I have some common questions. But as we progress, I will talk a little bit more. But if you have some questions, if you've got the notepads, please start preparing. That none of this is with any value if it's not a give and take. If there's not feedback, if there's not interaction, it becomes unsustainable. And that is why it's important to share these beliefs on Bring Your Friend March. When you're out in the street, when you're out with your friends, these are new ideas, and the ideas will die if not fought for, if there are not courageous people who stand up and do what Bill has done. An amazing story, an amazing life, an amazing creation that he has manifested for us all to be here. And I would say that is really the essence of Terasem, in maintaining a homeostasis and a community in which we are able to go out and do these things, where there's someone that you can talk to, there's someone that can coach you, there's someone that you can share with, there is someone who will take you off of ice when it's time to reanimate you. Because there are many things that you can do individually for your body. There are many things that you can do individually for a system. But if we do not maintain and we do not create the community that will accept us, that will allow us to thrive and to play and to do these things, then all the supplements in the world is not going to keep you alive. And even if you are, that immortality will not be joyful. So when we get to challenging the truths, there are a lot of things that people ask. And one of the most common ones is talking about Ray Kurzweil's singularity as an eschatological event for Terasem. And I had to look it up too, so don't be... So eschatological is kind of saying, this is the timeline of purpose, like creation and then going to rapture. What are these things doing? So as it mentions, Terasem as a philosophy does not follow a linear theory of time. Right, so it is not saying that the world was created, the universe is created, the Big Bang eventually will end. It is more saying that there's a cyclical and that we are constantly unfolding into that moment. So by that nature, in a strict definition, you wouldn't really call the singularity as an eschatological event. And also, the singularity is much more threatening to the biological than it is to what we would call the consciousness. So, having recited that, I'm going to take a breath. Is there anyone who had a passage that they were particularly curious about and is ready to pounce on? No, I'm seeing none. I'll continue with that. But I jumped in a little quicker in the beginning than I intended to. So I'm going to take a step back and talk about how, because I think that many of you are probably struggling with that aspect of the practicality of how do I take this metaphysical concept and apply it to my life. Well, most of you, if not all of us in here, are following trends about biological preservation, right? Living healthy, reversing the metabolic damage that has been done by our youth, by our lifestyle, intentionally or not. And many of you in here, I imagine, are cryonics members. Raise a hand who's cryonics members in here. Yep, good crowd. And that is certainly an important, a part of the science as well. But there is another aspect to that, and that is the accumulation of the information that your unique perspective has developed. So I had a great opportunity, introducing this concept to my 8-year-old son recently. And I want to use that example here is to say, we take a biological clone of any or each and every single one of you. This is a 3D printed make, just exactly to every allele and permutation of your genetic code. This is you down to the point that it has no recollection or memory of your life. Biologically indistinguishable. You're identical twin. The only difference is that you have the memories and that one doesn't. Which one is you? The one with the memories, right? So, what does your body have to do with it then at all? Other than the fact that your body is simply a host for that information. It is a storage vessel for that information. In the 2 weeks, 10 years, in the lifetime that you've been here, not a single cell that you have with you is what you started with. Not one. Each and every one of us is a ship of Theseus. We've been mixed and put together, regrown, rehashed. I have an artificial tooth. I wish I knew about the growing it back. That was painful. So that question, when you look at it that way, that question, it's almost, I have not heard a great retort to that framing. If you have two the exact same and one has the memories, one doesn't. When you frame it like that, how can you not see the individuality of you being a data set of information that is greater than the biological body that you're in? And how can something as pervasive across so many faiths and times and places that there is something greater than the body in you? There can't be, it has to have some element of a symbiotic nature to it for it to be that prevalent throughout so many places and times. And I think there is, some good examples of this that I was thinking as Anand was talking. There's a bunch of things. He was saying there's 300-400 things. I was like, man, I am slipping. But then he started going off, and he was talking about when the jumping in the cold water and all this stuff. And then I was thinking about it. I was like, hey, I do that. I never knew why I did it. I didn't know what it really was doing for me. But it was going off, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I do that. I try to do that. I did that like 3 weeks in a row. Yeah. It's not always consistent, but it is there. So I really encourage all of you to continue to meditate, particularly on that point, but to take the next step to go from there. So there are cryonics members in here. When Fred and Linda Chamberlain founded Alcor, there was another part to cryonics. It was a thing called Life Pact that they developed. Now, Life Pact was just a kind of pretty short, sweet recollection of different events and things that they had. But the idea was that they would use this to verify that the consciousness that they reanimated was the same as the one that they put to sleep. That was developed into this concept. That's where we get this idea of this concept of mind files and of mindware. Does anybody have a mind file? Anybody? Yep, you got a mind file? You got a mind file? Each and every one of you, except for Tanya, is lying. You do. You do have a mind file. Well, Facebook has your mind file, Instagram has your mind file, Amazon has your mind file, Google has your mind file, the NSA has your mind file, probably everybody in the world has your mind file, but you. You share, does anybody not have a smartphone in here? Raise your hand if you don't have a smartphone. One person in here has a chance that someone else is not creating a mind file of them right now. On the way down here, I Googled something, and then I opened up a social media feed. The first thing that I saw was the thing that I Googled. This science has been going on since the origin of organization to manipulate your existential belief, to regulate your production to someone else's end. And that's where I kind of want to take this big concept back to why all this matters, why it matters now, and where are we all going with it. This planet is having a miserable time sustaining our consumption habits as it is. Now, we are capable of sustaining far many consciousness than we do. We are just not capable of sustaining far many consumers than we have. That is a real problem that we have here. So whether it was the church, the state, an LLC, if you are not the one authoring self, someone else is doing that for you. And for many hundreds of years, vast sections of the world were producing goods and shipping them off to other places unbeknownst. They have no imagine. And if you can think of, if you were in sub-Saharan Africa or in Indochina, and you are producing all these goods and they're shipping off to London or someplace like that in 1700, you might as well have been shipping them to Mars or to another planet. Was there any functional difference? Transoceanic and transgalactic in that relevance? I don't think someone could conceive of a real difference to that magnitude. So we have all these groups that are manifesting and controlling our behavior, using these tools to get us to believe and perform in certain ways that are killing us and making other people ridiculously rich by the process of doing it. Now, what Terasem does, in contrast to what I would call the agrarian code of traditional religion, is to provide a framework of purpose and of action to manifest these things into reality. And it's not to get you to have any shame or disrespect of prophets or religious leaders, because all of these things are part of our history. They're part of where we came from. They're part of what will teach us about where we're going. The purpose, though, is to change our perception so that we stop looking for divinity in the past and for answers to be solved by something that created us, and for us to become the authors of ourselves, the manufacturers of the divinity of the God that we seek to see in the world. And that's truly where I hope to have feedback from you as the congregation. How does this apply to you? Where are the curiosities that this brings out in you? Once we do, because I believe that a great number of us will achieve continuity of consciousness, because most people, I would say most people who are probably 40 years and older will not be able to attain that. Well, they may be able to attain through cryonics, indefinite lifespan, but they will not attain continuity of consciousness, which means that from this form that you are in to whatever next form, your consciousness doesn't shut off for some period of time and then become reawakened at a later point in time. However, by the nature of you being in this room, regardless of your age, you are at the leading end of the cusp. So if there is anybody who's going to do it, it's someone in here in this room right now, because you've placed yourself through manifestation at the head of that. Is there any questions? If we have none, I'm going to take some. Yep. Excellent. We're done?
Hey, come on. All right, so we have again time for 2 questions. And I know everybody's got 1,000 questions. So what we're going to do is, my friend Shannon, where'd you go? Here she is, and here we go. Right down the main aisle. If you have a question, be sure to get a pad, because I want to get your questions. I don't want you to forget your questions. Talking about mind filing, huh? So I do want you to get those questions in, and we do have time for a couple of questions, I believe, okay? All right. So, John over here. Let's get over there. I believe you have a question.
I did indeed. Last time I saw you, Gabe, was in Satellite Beach at a fundraiser. You don't remember me, but welcome back, brother. Good to see you. Anyway, I was wondering about the immortalization of consciousness vis-a-vis technology. Is there any role for bringing the biological body along for that process?
Absolutely, right. So your biological body also can be broken down into a set of information, right? So through our Life Not program, we do have this biofile program where we take some genetic samples and we store that along with your information, your experiences, your mind file, and that actually was mostly a pretty easy thing to solve. Because it's actually kind of right there. We've done so much work with biology and understanding genes that printing your biologic code and getting that all worked up, we're light years ahead on turning biological information into digital information than we are doing the same with your mind, because we are still trying to even understand what is going on inside the brain that makes us what we are. And one of the unique things is that your brain is so versatile that what's going on in your brain is probably not the same thing that's going on in my brain. That's exactly the thing, is that's where the uniqueness of us it is. And the more you get into it, the more you look at that, the harder it is to look at the body and say that this is what I have to take with me forever. Now, that's not to say don't respect it, right? Respect the body, your physical body, just as we would the planet, because this is a true fact about our congregation, about our belief structure, about the things that we're trying to do. We have opponents, and one of the primary things that they're going to come to is that, hey, there's enough problems already. Why are you going to last forever?
All right.
to fix them. That's a good one, yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. All right, thank you very much, Gabriel. Gabriel is graciously going to allow us to put his PowerPoint on our website, so you'll look for it in a couple of days. It'll be on our website, so you can see that again and share it. Obviously, we are live streaming, we are recording, and you can watch this video again, the video of tonight, anytime you'd like to. So I know you've got 1,000 questions. It breaks my heart I can't get you all into a question here at Q&A. Gabriel's going to hang out with us a little bit, and you'll be able to ask him in person, or be sure to get to see Shannon and get those questions. I don't want you to forget your questions. I do want to get you answers. Give me your email, and I'll do my best to get you answers if you don't get a chance to see Gabriel tonight. It gives me great pleasure now to bring up the founder of Perpetual Life, Mr. Bill Faloon.
Group, you know, when I prepare these monthly age reversal updates, I continue to marvel at the velocity of the findings in the published scientific data that substantiate everything that you've learned since the founding of this entity back in 2013. We talk about activating AMPK. We've shown this graph several times. It's a stair-step approach to controlling biological aging so that we can live long enough to take advantage of what Gabriel described in the prior talk. But activating AMPK every single day, there's new data on metformin and other ways to activate your cellular AMPK to reduce your cancer risk, lose some body weight, slow aging, maybe even reverse it, restoring NAD. Very important. Without sufficient NAD, we are unable to reverse the damage to the DNA that occurs. Our DNA strands break throughout the day, and NAD is responsible for repairing them. Without that NAD, well, we die. We absolutely require sufficient levels of NAD. But the senolytics, the third step on there, we're seeing an incredible amount of technology emerging. And the most recent study, which I'm going to describe next talk, it dealt with congestive heart failure and how that every modality that can prolong survival in congestive heart failure patients, it is thwarted. The rejuvenation modality, be it stem cells, be it medications, nutrients, hormones, it's all thwarted by the toxic chemicals that are spewed out of the senescent cells that exist in our heart muscle and throughout our body. And by using senolytic compounds to remove those senescent cells, it appears that that may be the game changer in reversing heart failure, which afflicts 8 million Americans in this country right now, and it's going to kill most of them. It's going to be an absolute epidemic, and there may be a way now to reverse that. And of course, biologics, we call it young plasma up there, that is emerging as another therapy to deal with some of the chronic disorders that people are suffering from. And if we can make it all the way up to CRISPR-Cas9 technology, that is potentially the ultimate solution for biological aging. We project around 2030, that's when CRISPR will emerge, and then we just have to make it another 20 years to merge into the cloud, to enjoy everything that Gabriel just talked to you about. We need to make it to about 2050 based on the projections that people like Ray Kurzweil and others are making. It may sound like a long way for a lot of us, but if we take care of ourselves and utilize the interventions that are being identified every day and further validated every single day, we've got a good shot to make it to the point where we merge into the cloud and we achieve biological indefinite extended lifespan, but almost certainly the ability to merge into the cloud and our consciousness continuing to exist for a perpetual period of time. Now, Dr. George Church, he's a Harvard professor, and at the end of the year 2015, the Washington Post reported on his CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology. And Dr. Church believes, and he is an immortalist, by the way, like me. He happens to be my age also. He believes that this technology will emerge soon enough for most people alive today to never die of an age-related disorder. Aging will not kill people, in other words, once CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology is perfected. And George Church has gotten a lot of people to believe in this technology, including this individual who put $250 million of his own money into a research foundation that is determined to use CRISPR technology to eradicate all cancers, to cure all cancers simply by editing the genomic structure. And that's what cancer is. It's a mutations. It's an alteration of genes that regulates cellular proliferation. That's all cancer is. And if you can control those genes, edit those genes in a way that cells regain the ability to control their replication in a healthy way, you've just cured cancer. And this group is spending a lot of time and a lot of money using the CRISPR-Cas9 that George Church announced in 2015. They're using it today to figure out a way to eliminate, to make cancer go away. So George Church has managed to raise a lot of money. And that's great news. That means we don't have to go out and do fundraising for him because he's got a lot of people investing in a company that we hope will perfect the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology. He's getting a lot of publicity because this is something so revolutionary that it is inspiring people to understand that the prospect of eradicating biological aging may not be that far away. We're looking at 10 to 12 years, and this technology may very well be saving our lives. But just within the last 45 days, a brand new study came out. This was done on mice who suffer the human equivalent of progeria. Progeria is a form of accelerated aging. A young person born with progeria, they age so quickly that by the time they're around 12 to 14 years of age, they're on the verge of death. They have severe atherosclerosis, severe systemic inflammation. They look like very old people outwardly. It's a horrific condition to be afflicted with. And there's a mouse model of human progeria that they tested CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology on. And they were able to achieve remarkable results in slowing down that progression so that the mice getting the CRISPR technology, they were not suffering the impact of accelerated aging the way normally progerioid mice do. This is a huge, huge advance. This work was done at the Salk Institute, published in a respected journal, and they were able to deal with those issues that all of the aging people have to contend with over a long period of time. The progeria people unfortunately suffer it in a very short time frame. And they were able to improve functionality, deal with some of those cardiovascular issues, and enable these progerioid mice to live 25% longer. This is really good news. A therapy that in 2015 was projected to be developed eventually, it's already showing results in vivo models. It's showing a result. Now, this is not normal human aging. This is accelerated aging. It nonetheless demonstrates that CRISPR-Cas9 is something that is going to work, at least in certain models. And the scientists behind us, outrageously excited. They don't make a lot of money, these PhDs, by the way. They have an incredible education. They work real hard. Their fulfillment is achieving scientific objectives, and as it relates to the Salk Institute, objectives that enable people to thwart disease and live for long periods of time. So we now have an in vivo model of CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology working in 2019. Just think where it's going to be in 2030 when we project it will be perfected enough to literally cure biological aging by editing the genes that overly express themselves as we grow older that are toxic and suppressing the gene expression of the senile genes, the ones that cause our cells to deteriorate. Now, a lot of people wonder, you've got kidneys that are very fragile, hearts, lungs, livers, we got organs in our body that get old. And sometimes the only factor that kills us is the deterioration of one organ system. Well, Harvard scientists just recently have uncovered a way to manipulate DNA to regenerate organs, regenerate pretty much anything they want to do. They're talking about whole body regeneration using DNA technology today and proving that it works in the animal model. These are very recent findings, and they address so many of the skeptics' concerns about how are you ever going to do something to a person who has failing kidneys or has some organ system, including the bone marrow. I mean, bone marrow failure, huge problem for older people. Well, if we can regenerate it, what's the difference? It just becomes another medical procedure to keep us alive a lot longer. And we got this little news report about a mainstream executive working for one of these companies that sells pretty much unhealthy foods. He's bolted and gone to work for a company that's determined to find ways to slow down or reverse aging. This company, Life Biosciences, they've got a lot of money, and they're determined to find ways to deal with the chronic problem we all suffer, and that is biological aging. So we've got one of PepsiCo's top scientists going into the other side, trying to figure out a way to keep people alive and healthy instead of figuring out ways to sell them foods that slow down their ability to live and impede their functionality. Now, this is not a brand new finding, but we ran across it. It's about a year old. Parabiosis, we've talked about a lot. That's connecting a young animal to an old animal. And what happens is you've got systemic rejuvenation of the old animal who enjoys the circulating young blood from the young animal. And there are some ways that we can do that today using plasma exchange procedures, it's apheresis procedures. But what this study showed is they were able to rejuvenate kidney function in older animals via parabiosis. And that's really important because if we're over age 60, our kidneys are wearing out really fast. A lot of people over age 60 have chronic kidney failure. And what they were able to show is that parabiosis, young plasma transfer, was able to improve kidney function in older animals, suppress systemic inflammation, just do a lot that we know is needed, including removing senescent cells. That's another benefit to having young plasma going through your body. It has immune factors that get rid of some of those senescent cells. They're causing so many of us to die prematurely. Now, the FDA issued a warning earlier this month about people who are spending a lot of money on young plasma. They're advising people, don't do it. And in this case, we probably agree with what the FDA is recommending against, and we say it in the context that there are profit-making companies out there selling young plasma for around $5,000 to $8,000 or more. And the plasma is not necessarily that young. They're taking people up to 35 years of age. And we need younger plasma. If we do a pilot program where we remove the senile proteins from people's plasma and then restore it with healthy young plasma, and I mean viral-free, healthy young plasma, the age group is going to be limited probably to under 21, as far below the age of 21 as possible, where we use the young plasma, but we're also going to simultaneously remove as many of the senile plasma proteins as we can to enjoy the benefits seen in the parabiosis models. So people who are contemplating just young plasma off the shelf, I think it's something to wait for. Let us do a study to validate maybe if there's a better way to do it so we don't have to worry about spending a lot of money and getting just minimal benefits. A group at Harvard, by the way, has set up a new group to try to look at all the different age reversal interventions that are being identified to maybe recommend which ones work better, which ones don't, which is the purpose of this group gathering. Why we get together? We want to compare notes. We want to interact with each other. We want to explain what may be working to a group or explain to an individual what's not working so that we don't make the mistakes. So it's good that scientists are getting together, forming groups to evaluate technologies. That's something that my group and many others have been doing for many, many decades. And Again, the idea that our bodies accumulate senescent cells as we grow biologically older, and those senescent cells may be the number one factor behind degenerative aging. So a new study came out again very recently in which they found that selectively removing the senescent cells from mice, they were able to reverse the impact of type 2 diabetes, of insulin resistance. They were able to show that the senescent cell burden is a major factor in insulin resistance syndrome. Insulin resistant syndrome manifesting as metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, or just normal age-related degeneration. And these are the findings from this study, again published just a few days ago, on what happens if you take a group of metabolic syndrome, pre-diabetic mice, and you remove their senescent cells. You get all of these incredible benefits, including improvements in heart function. And we're seeing that in a number of studies. And I came across my desk just yesterday a study in which senescent cells, by virtue of all the toxins they're emanating into your heart muscle, well, if you try stem cells, if you try hormonal therapy, nutritional therapy, drug therapy, if those senescent cells are constantly destroying healthy tissues, destroying the stem cells, you're not going to benefit. You're not going to benefit long term. You'll be like everybody else who's diagnosed with heart failure. They die in 3 to 5 years, and during that 3 to 5 year period, they're in the hospital, they get out of the hospital, they're readmitted to the hospital, they suffer a lot, they spend a heck of a lot of money, and they don't get cured. This may represent an ability to extend lifespan in people with congestive heart failure in a way that they don't die from the disease. And we can measure that with ejection fraction tests. All kinds of tests can enable us to identify how effective the senescent cell removal process is. And that's just a very succinct update that I wanted to give tonight, and I'll be around for a couple hours to answer any questions people might have. I want to thank you all.
We have pads and pens downstairs for questions you'd like to give to Bill if you don't get a chance to meet with him. And we have a delicious dinner ready for you downstairs. Thank you for coming to Perpetual Life. See you again.
Life is happening in the moment. Love and light to you. Know that all is as it should be. Love and light to you. Love and light to you. Love and light is true. Love and light to you. Love and light to you. Now I enter into stillness, love and light to you. From the center comes the goodness, love and light to you. Love and light to you. Love and light is true. Love and light to you. Love and light to you. See all of creation move in transformation. Love and light is true. Love and light to you. Feel the inspiration. Move into co-creation. This insight is true. Love and light to you. It's about the journey, not the destination. Love and light to you. It's about the joy and the celebration. Love and light to you. Love and light to you. Love and light is true. Love and light to you. Love and light to you. inspiration, moving transformation. This insight is true, love and light to you. Feel the inspiration, moving to co-creation. Love and light is true, love and light to you. Life is happening in the moment, love and light to you. Know that all is as it should be, love and light to you.